Fiverr's recently launched a new one-step challenge program, and in this video we're going to be exploring
the trading objectives, comparing the scaling plans, analyzing profit to drawdown ratios, find some of the hidden rules,
and my opinion at the end. I can't find any other mentions of this on YouTube, so I'm really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments. Fiverr's currently have 3 challenge types. They've got 1-step, 2-step, and 3-step, and the Pro Growth Challenge is a new variant of the 1-step challenge. This just means that there's only one profit target to reach before you can become funded. So although these 1-step challenges are easier to pass, you'll generally have a larger profit to drawdown ratio, which is a bad thing, than 2-step and 3-step challenges.
So if you visit the Fiverr's website and you go on the 1-step challenge called Hypergrowth and you scroll down, you'll see that they actually have a new challenge listed here called Pro Growth. I'm going to be comparing the differences between these. You can see the Pro Growth challenge, like the Hypergrowth challenge and many other 1-step and 2-step challenges, has a 10% evaluation target. Now this is pretty standard across the board, nothing unusual or interesting here. Now they have a 6% stop out level. This gives a profit to drawdown ratio of 1 to 1.67. Now we'll explore this a little bit more in depth later on in the video. What the stop out level basically means is that you can't lose more than 6% of the account's starting balance. Now if you take a look at the daily loss, you'll see that it's highlighted in yellow, and the reason for that is because on the Hypergrowth challenge, it's actually not a daily loss rule, it's a daily pause rule. Now this sounds kind of subjective, and because this challenge is literally brand new, there isn't a huge amount of information about what this means. When I've spoken to people at the Fiverr's, they've told me that the daily pause is essentially a soft breach and the daily loss is a hard breach. You'll see that the profit split is up to 100%. This is the case on both the Pro Growth and the Hypergrowth challenge, and we're going to have a closer look at the challenges profit split scaling a bit later on. Both challenges have unlimited time limit, which I'm so grateful for as a swing trader. I'm so pleased that these prop firms removed the time limit. The Pro Growth challenge has 1 to 30 leverage. It's the same on Hypergrowth. It basically means that you can't really have more than 2 to 3% risk running at any given time, at least on Forex symbols in my experience. One thing I found really interesting about the Pro Growth challenge is that the fee is significantly lower compared to the Hypergrowth challenge, and yet the funded conditions, the stop out level, is essentially the same. The only thing they've really changed in the funding stage is the daily loss versus daily pause. It's so interesting that just by changing the daily loss from a kind of soft breach to a hard breach, they're literally able to make the challenge more than 3 times cheaper, nearly 4 times cheaper. Daily loss is probably what gets most traders, which shows that most traders are actually over risking. Both Pro Growth and Hypergrowth have bonuses at the funded stage. Each time you scale up, you get a small bonus. The last key difference between the Pro Growth and Hypergrowth challenge is that the Pro Growth has a minimum profitable trading days rule of 3 on the challenge phase, which basically means you can't just pass this challenge all in one trade. You need to have ended a 24-hour period in profit on 3 separate occasions, and that's something that is not on the Hypergrowth challenge. That is exclusively to the Pro Growth challenge. Now those are the key differences when you take a look at the trading objectives, but there is actually another difference between the Pro Growth and Hypergrowth challenge, and that is when it comes to scaling. So the main difference in the scaling plan is that the Hypergrowth doubles each time you hit 10% profit on the funded stage, whereas the Pro Growth doesn't. It follows the high stakes scaling plan. So if you have a 20k Pro Growth funded account and you achieve 10% profit on that account, they'll scale you up to 25k. The profit split remains the same right up until you scale the account to 350k. So that's quite a long journey. Most traders will not achieve an 80% profit split. And on the Hypergrowth, it's fairly similar, where you start off with a 50% profit split, which is quite poor. But if you scale up, which means you're hitting 10%, they will double the account balance, which is incredible, and then you're straight onto the 75% profit split. But then you do need to have 5 more scale ups, achieving 640k, which again is going to be very difficult for most traders before you can achieve an 80% profit split. So I would say that's one point to the Hypergrowth. To be honest, that scaling plan is insane. It's incredible that you can scale up so quickly, but it is one of the reasons that their challenge is slightly more expensive than the Pro Growth, which is much slower to scale up. So I've taken the 3 Fiverr's challenge variants, which is 1-step, 2-step, and 3-step, and I've kind of plotted out the information in front of you here. First thing I did was I took a look at the profit to drawdown ratios for each of these challenges. The profit to drawdown ratio essentially gives a really simple view of how easy that challenge is to pass. The one-step challenge has a 1 to 1.67 profit to drawdown ratio. That's 10% profit and a 6% maximum drawdown. Now, but you have a 10% maximum drawdown. So that gives a 1 to 1.3 profit to drawdown ratio. The Fiverr's bootcamp program, which is their 3-step challenge, has a 6% profit target requirement on phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, which means you need to make a total of 18% profit without exceeding their very small 5% maximum drawdown, which gives a profit to drawdown ratio of 1 to 3.6, which is very, very high. But the reason that this is so high is because they've been able to price this very, very cheaply. You can see compared to the other challenges, their 3-step program is unbelievably cheap. It's basically $1 for each $1,000 of funding, which is unbelievable. Now, I've passed a 3-step challenge myself in the past, but it took me a year because I had to risk such a low amount to avoid exceeding the 5% maximum drawdown.
By the way, if you're interested in starting a prop firm challenge with the Fivers, I'll leave a link to them down in the description.
Now, I've plotted this here on a chart. It's quite an interesting chart. It's not what you'd expect. The difficulty along the bottom here, along the x-axis, is basically just the profit to drawdown ratio, and I've done cost up the side. So personally, I would say the 2-step is the best challenge overall. It's the most balanced. The 1-step is very convenient, but it's also very expensive. It's a little bit harder than the 2-step challenge. And I know you may say, well, the 2-step challenge, it's got 2 phases. Surely that makes it harder, right? Well, the 1-step has in terms of the pro growth, it has 3 minimum profitable trading days, which are quite similar to having multiple phases in itself, because you may hit the 10% profit target, but you've got to continue trading and have 2 more profitable days. Those are essentially little challenge phases in themselves. And then lastly, we've got the 3-step challenge, which is very, very difficult. It's got a very high profit to drawdown ratio, but the cost is so low. It's literally 10 times cheaper than the other challenges. So very interesting to kind of take a closer look at this data. Like I said, the Pro Growth Challenge is literally like brand new. So a lot of the information on the website in terms of the rules and the program specifications are still only relevant to the Hypergrowth Challenge, but the Pro Growth and Hypergrowth Challenge have a lot of similarities, so we'll still be able to get some interesting information here. For example, you can hold trades over the weekend on both the Pro Growth and the Hypergrowth Challenge. 1 to 30 leverage, which we've discussed. You're allowed to trade news, which we've discussed. That's amazing. It says that you're allowed to hold indices over the weekend, but it carries a very, very high swap. There's also a 30 consecutive day inactivity period, so you need to take at least 1 trade every 30 days. And there's also a mention here about the maximum capital per trader. So you can have up to 40K in 1-step challenge funding. So this does not include funding from their 2-step or 3-step challenges. So for example, you can have the maximum funding with 3-step and 2-step, and if you want to really go all out, you can go get the maximum funding on 1-step as well, which is 40K. It looks like they do payouts in a 14-day cycle, which is great. And you'll receive the bonuses, which we mentioned as hub credits, which you can use to purchase future Fivers challenges. There's a note here on the Hypergrowth Challenge, which it says the daily pause does not terminate the account. It just disables it for the day. So it's a very generous soft breach. It doesn't look like, you know, if you get 3 consecutive soft breaches, it blows the account. But like I said, that's only relevant for the Hypergrowth Challenge, and this video is about the Pro Growth Challenge. So I think the Pro Growth is a very competitive challenge compared to the Hypergrowth Challenge, just because of the huge reduction in price. If you're not a swing trader, if you're somebody that has multiple small winning trades, that's great, because the minimum profitable trading days aren't going to be a problem for you. For me, I get most of my profit in large individual trades. So for me, the minimum profitable trading days is a bit of a nuisance. So perhaps the Hypergrowth Challenge would work better for myself. There's also the introduction of the daily loss rule, which is ultimately why the one-time fee is so much cheaper. So this does carry through to the funded stage. You have to be a bit careful that you don't exceed more than 3% lost in a day, because you will violate this rule and you'll lose the account. So it is a lot more flexible on the Hypergrowth rule, but does that warrant the cost being 3 to 4 times higher? That's up to you. So that's my personal opinion on the Pro Growth Challenge. I kind of feel like it's somewhere in between the Hypergrowth and the high stakes. My personal favorite challenge is the high stakes challenge. That's what I would go for. I think two-step challenges are the best middle ground. They tend to be the easiest challenges to pass, and they also tend to have the most competitive pricing. So I would personally go for a high stakes challenge. Thanks so much for watching to the end of this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're new and leave a like too. Bye bye.